in the United States Virgin Islands. It's sort of like a cloudy morning. It's slightly overcast. We're expecting some rainfall. That's what has been predicted, but you never know. Sometimes predictions are made and the predictions don't hold up. But it is, the cloud cover is increasing. As I traveled from the west to the east, it was noticeable that cloud cover is increasing. So presumably we're going to have some rains during the latter part of the day, and according to predictions, we can expect significant rainfall throughout the course of the week. Let's see what happens, because sometimes, like I said, the predictions are made, but they don't always hold true. Nonetheless, it's good to be here with you this morning. There are several things I want us to get into, but before we even get there, I want to, as usual, take some time, do a pause, where I let folks know that I believe that we are created beings, and if we are created beings, we humans, and the animals likewise. In fact, Earth and all that's contained in Earth, as far as I have learned, it's all about creation. And if you have a creation, then there must be a creator. And so I pay respect, I exercise reverence to the creator based upon experience, upbringing, training, if I may, teachings. I've come to understand that there is a personal reference as far as the creator is concerned. And so I have embraced that. And I give thanks, I give praises, I exercise obeisance unto the creator. And I do so as a result of teachings to a large extent that we have received from prophets and other messengers. So again, I say thanks be unto the creator for the gift of life and for the blessings that come to us as a result of this this phenomenon, this process that we call life. I am thankful that we do get blessings from the sun and its relationship to Earth and the other planets. As a matter of fact, even the other planets have impact on us. The moon has significant impact on our well-being, on our existence, if I may. The waters and the air. If we didn't have the waters, what would become of life as we know it? If we didn't have the air to breathe, what would become of life as we know it? If the sun suddenly went dark, just think about that for a minute. We take it for granted that we experience a rising of the sun and a setting of the sun on a daily basis. We take that for granted. But if the sun suddenly went black, no light, what would become of life on earth as we know it? So I am thankful for that, and I hope that we all are thankful for the existence of the sun and the blessings we get from it. Those who have studied science can tell us all of the benefits that come from the sun being where it is and its relationship with the earth. Similarly, the moon has extends significant benefits to us. Now, if we didn't have the air to breathe, without air, think about it. Hold your breath for a few seconds, minutes, and see what you begin to experience from the physical standpoint. Without the air, we couldn't have life as we know it. And the same thing holds for water. We were told that 3/4 of the human body consists of water, liquid. Water forms the bulk of the transportation system in the human body, the blood. It is the blood that carries the nutrients all around the body. We were told that the life is in the blood. Without that transportation system, we couldn't have life as we have it. So I look at all of these things and I am thankful for the experience, because it's an awesome experience. Just to behold the beauties of nature is a wonderful experience. Just to interact with fellow human beings, it's a great experience. Just to behold the other creatures and the vegetation around us and the beauty of the ocean. I mean, come on. So I am thankful. I'm not going to be like one of those who say that there is no God. God is supreme, superior, all encompassing intelligence, if I may. It is the superior, God is the superior intelligent force that we have. God is a source from which all of us come forth. So I am thankful. I exercise appreciation for the gift of life. I exercise and I show appreciation for just being here on earth and being able to interact with you guys by the different media that we have. So I hope you share my position as far as the gift of life is concerned. Now, there are a number of things I want us to touch upon this morning. I know I missed a couple of Mondays, and so I've not been able to interface with you, but I had an experience during the course of my absence, and I want to share that with you this morning. Again, before I even get into that, I want to remind folks that the numbers here are 773-0390, 773-0490 if you want to call and share with us. I had an experience at the Wang F. Louis Hospital. And at the time I became so irate that I made a statement to the effect that the protest begins this night. I went to the hospital at approximately 10 o'clock in the night with my wife, who had spiking high blood pressure. I don't recall exactly what the numbers were, but it was like 200 over some 90 something. Crazy. We went there at approximately 10 o'clock in the night, like I said. And even in the interim before she got to see a physician, the blood pressure was checked. And instead of going down, it continued to rise. But she didn't get to see a physician, not until about 3 o'clock in the morning. Think about that, from 10 in the evening. And when we got there, there were approximately 4 or 5 persons awaiting, treatment, awaiting being seen by a physician. I became a little annoyed when I realized that her pressure continued to rise, and yet she couldn't get to see a physician. And mind you, there were no, how should I put it? There were no emergencies coming through, so that one could have said, well, okay, because of emergencies coming through, folks that had to have been treated as a priority, they had to go easy on the folks who were there waiting. And then there was this young lady. I did get her telephone number. I gave her my number. She was supposed to get back to me. But she had been there approximately a couple of hours before we arrived. She had a son who had a spiking fever. And having spent an inordinate amount of time in the emergency waiting room and not receiving attention from anyone, she was certainly upset about the matter. And that's why after we had some discussion, we exchanged telephone numbers, and I did promise I was going to get back to her. I gave her my card. I told her, you can give me a call. We'll talk about the matter. But just about everybody in there, all the folks who were in there at the time, they were concerned about the lengthy period of wait that patients had to go through before being attended to by a physician. Now, when my wife did get to see a physician at approximately 3 o'clock in the morning, the physician was very professional, extremely professional. I really appreciated his discussion with us about this, my wife's situation. And eventually they decided, I don't recall exactly what time it was when a decision, because even after she saw the physician, we had a long wait before any action was taken. I don't recall exactly what time it was when they decided to do something sort of like intravenously to bring the pressure down. But I then asked the nurse at the time, can I go home to get some rest and I'll come back for her when she's ready, because she couldn't tell me precisely when my wife would have been ready. So I left at about maybe like 4 o'clock in the morning. They still had not begun the procedure. I went home, and then later at about 6:30 in the morning, I was called to come pick her up from the hospital. Now think about that, folks. Having gone to the emergency room at 10 o'clock in the evening, and she didn't get to leave the hospital not until about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. I mean, this is crazy. Stone crazy. And like I said, it's not that the emergency room was packed with patients who needed to see a physician. And I understand that it was just this one attending physician operating that night. I don't recall what day it was. I really should have made note of that so that this morning I could give you all the facts precisely. But anyway, be it what it may, this is totally unacceptable, people. It is unacceptable when you consider the fact that we just had a Senate hearing where they're talking about all the money is being spent in this economy, money is to be spent, and how that should be a draw to get Virgin Islanders who are overseas to come back and take up residence in the territory. And of course, they mention things like healthcare and education and infrastructure that needs to be addressed to attract people to come back to the territory. I'm saying it's just crazy. Here you have these lawmakers talking about these matters. And I wonder if these lawmakers, when they drive along the roads, when they walk through the neighborhoods, that they take note of what is going on. When their folks go to the hospitals, when their children and grandchildren attend the schools, if they go around to find out what is happening in the schools, what's happening at the hospitals, we talk to the nurses. And don't get me wrong, the professionals who render services at the hospital, man, I take my hat off to them. They're wonderful. They have pleasant attitudes when they deal with you. But the support mechanisms just aren't there to let them have the supplies, the manpower numbers so that they're not burnt out. These things just aren't there. And I'm wondering, what in the name of parrotfish is going on here? On the island of St. Croix in particular, but perhaps generally so throughout the territory. We just have too many issues that have not been addressed efficiently by the government, from healthcare to the schools, to utilities, power, with WAPA. I mean, come on, man, folks. It just isn't right. I'm driving along the roads, and I'm watching areas which was once striped. The road surface is not in poor condition, but the roads need to be restriped, especially when you get close to intersections. And it's like nobody cares. There is a theory, the broken window theory, referred to neglect, dilapidation in neighborhoods. It's like you've got a broken window, nobody pays attention to it to fix it. You've got a building which is shut down, nobody does anything about it, and you get to have a ripple effect where everything goes down the drain and the whole neighborhood goes to waste. Small things that we need to work on in real time, as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible, so as to create an impression that the community is alive and doing well, and we don't do that. We expect better, but we don't do better. I mean, come on, folks. It doesn't bother the people who are in a position to do something about it. And the rest of us, we seem to go along to get along. That just ain't right. Just isn't right. There was a meeting again to address solid waste disposal in the territory. You know how long we've been struggling with that? At one time, we had a situation where when an attempt was made to move the landfill on St. Croix from one place to the next, some people said, no, not in my backyard. And maybe they had a legitimate reason for so saying. But I can tell you of persons who came before those government officials, made presentations, told them what they had to offer, how they could have even mined the landfill over at Anguilla on the island of St. Croix, reduce it down to the level of a golf course, if I may. They would actually utilize all of the stuff in there to produce energy. Nothing came out of that. We had another situation where I remember presentations were made where they spoke about facilities they'd seen on the mainland, where the trucks come, drive in to those facilities. Waste separation is carried out. You don't see nothing from the outside. And so they take care of the solid waste problems. Spoke about that. Nothing done in the territory. Even people who served in certain capacities, where they had rule over these matters, and then subsequently served in the legislature, did nothing as far as implementation is concerned. We continue to give lip service to problems here in the territory. I did a video at one time, which was posted on Facebook, where I drove into Concordia West, where it's a dump site. And I subsequently went to the facility in Peters Rest to show the difference, like night and day. Those of you who go to these facilities, you know what it's like in Peters Rest, as opposed to what we have over in Concordia, Estate Concordia in the West. Crazy. Let me get this here. Man, I'm telling you, sometimes. Hello, caller. Good morning and welcome.
Pleasant good morning.
Good morning to you and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Happy Paradise Monday. I give the thanks and praises to my goddess of love to be present with me every step of my earthly and spiritual journey. Well, today is another day in paradise, and so lots of things going on. I attended the march this Sunday, yesterday.
What march are you talking about?
The one, all those who have lost their lives.
Oh, yeah.
To homicide.
I missed that one.
Yeah, I should have been there. There was just a handful of people, and of course you had the well-known speaker, Mario Mahed. He was the keynote speaker, and I enjoyed the program.
I wasn't aware of it. No, I wasn't. I missed that one completely.
Oh, you weren't listening to Mario then?
No, I did not. Actually, to be honest with you, I have been so busy doing some work in my backyard, which I intend to share that with the public, because I'm recording different stages as I create some rock gardens and other things in my backyard area space, you know. So I'm pretty occupied these days doing some work in it.
Yeah, I know how it is. We retire. We more occupied than ever. But I try to squeeze in a little bit, you know, to give to my community. And I cried, man. Wow. I thought I was looking at a photo of my brother. And I'm telling him, I'm like positive. I'm like, I know he was of a homicide. And I'm looking and I'm like, that's my father. And my cousin's like, you can't read? I'm like, I was just looking at the foot until I saw Junior.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. His son was a clone of him.
Wow.
And now Peterson Jr.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, if I show you a picture of my handsome father when he was 25,
Mm-hmm.
and we compare to my brother, my handsome brother, he was a clone of my father.
Mm-hmm.
But it brought tears to my eyes because I realized several of the, they had the photographs of the victims.
Mm-hmm.
Several of them were my students. You know, some names you don't forget. No matter how long ago it's been, there's some names that just stick in my head and I can't get it. Russell Felix, someone brought tears to my eyes. His sister was a speaker, Tassia. There were others, you know, but I don't think I saw one of the names. I know was a victim, maybe. I meant to ask about that one. But this name I can't get it out of my head. Robert Anthony. He was a student of mine when I began teaching, the early part of my teaching career at the original Elena Christian Junior High School in Christiansted,
Mm-hmm.
Richmond. And this student, when he was about 16 years old, was found by a garbage pan with Cheetos in his mouth. Multiple gunshot wounds. So I'm like, I don't know how we're going to address this one. It's very disturbing.
Well, hold on. You didn't mention that some of the victims were actually victims of perhaps law enforcement misconduct? Because
yeah,
it's
like
not
my nephew.
okay. So it's not all of them that just have to do with the perhaps rampant gun violence we see, but in some cases, I know of at least 2 cases where law enforcement had been implicated, and I don't even know if there is any resolution as far as that's concerned.
Well, you know, although I'm related by blood, I am in the dark
Mm-hmm.
of exactly what transpired, what has been reported, what has been recorded, what's the result, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But each one of them was from this community,
Mm-hmm.
St. Boy,
Mm-hmm.
and they have families. Everybody has a mother and father.
Mm-hmm.
They may not have a brother and sister or cousin. Everybody has a mother and a father.
Mm-hmm.
And one loss is a tremendous loss to our community, and I don't know how we could address this rise in domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just not here. It's all over.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a president that promoted violence and not peace and conflict resolution, what do you expect? They look up to the leader, they emulate the leaders of the nation. And we have a lot of leaders, not just of America, that, so I don't understand, why don't they want to move toward world peace? I just don't get it.
So
and then you have the issue.
Yeah, let me ask you then, does it mean that if children come from a violent prone home, that they necessarily must continue in this tradition and be violent in the dealings with other people? Okay, so hold on.
Play a part.
Yeah, hold on. So if based on what you're saying here, even if the mother nation chooses to go through a violent path, it doesn't mean that the territory has to be that way. We have leaders here. We have leaders here who ought to know better. And when I speak of leaders, I'm not talking of just the civic leaders. I'm talking about the spiritual leaders as well, who can come together and forge a path that our people can go into, whereby they set aside the tendency, the inclination to violence, and embrace a path of peace, if I may. Don't tell me we can't do that.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I didn't see the spiritual religious leaders there.
Mm-hmm.
It was mostly coming from a political angle. And I respect the perspective of the speakers.
Mm-hmm.
But I honestly, way I view it, you can make all the laws you want. The outlaws don't care. You could make more stringent laws. The horses out the barn now with guns.
Mm-hmm.
You don't manufacture them,
mm-hmm.
but the air can't eliminate them. Guns don't kill. It's the mind, the mindset. So I am just saying, I don't really necessarily see it as how some people feel that the elected officials don't care. They gotta care because we who are native Virgin Islanders, many of us are interrelated by blood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So it's one family, I mean, even if they're your family, they're your community.
Mm-hmm.
And so I disagree that they don't care. I just think that we as a community need to come up with some solutions
mm-hmm.
to address the issue, and we need to work collaboratively, cohesively, and cooperatively with our government to do
mm-hmm.
so.
Mm-hmm.
And let me ask you a question, because I know it's election cycle now. Is there a law in place that says that you can't modify or amend the election laws?
Yeah.
Within 6 months period?
Yeah, there is a time frame. It's 6 months within an election.
So if we have it in a primary, it would be in August.
Uh-huh.
Can the legislature now pass any laws to amend?
This may not be the case, but if you're referencing the lawsuit being brought by the Democratic Party against the election system of the Virgin Islands, it may boil down to a point where if the courts render an opinion that makes certain things invalid, that's gonna stand. It's gonna hold true. So at this point in time, it's gonna rely on the court decision as to what actions will be taken.
Okay, well, good, because we got the third branch that interprets the law.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have some members on the Board of Elections promoting falsehood. They're alleging that for 20 years, some political candidates have filed financial reports. And I know you've been in the Senate. I ran for the Senate in 2010. There's a form you have to fill out, right? And if you if you create a campaign committee, it has to be registered and you have to have a bank account, correct?
Yep.
All right.
But hold on. Even if you do not have a committee and you receive campaign contributions, you have a responsibility to report, if not to the Board of Elections, but to the Virgin Islands government, BI. What's it, BIR?
Okay, hold on. my knee and my hip. I got problems, so I just go slowly. Okay, be blessed. Let me see you. Hello?
Yeah, I was saying to you that, let's say, for example, Vidal, you're running for office. You don't have a committee, but for some reason, you received the sum of, say, $5,000 from different parties to assist you with your venture, your undertaking. It is income that has come to you. So that even if you do not report it to the election system as campaign contributions, you will have to indicate to the IRS that that's money that's income that you receive. As to how you're gonna, I don't know how you're gonna have it as a deductible when you file your taxes, but you're required by law to report this as income, as a gift, if I may.
Okay, and if you report it, all right, and you don't use and you spend it if you don't use all for your campaign, and you spend it on personal expenses, such as your credit card, non-related to the campaign, what would that be considered?
It's a gift that you received. You're reporting to the IRS that you were given a gift. You spend your gift in whatever you
so. You want to spend it?
Exactly.
Okay, all right. But let me ask you now.
In other words, all receipts must be accounted for one way or the other.
Right. They have to be reported. They have to be filed.
Right.
I get that. Well, you have some members on the board of elections. Say for 20 years, some political candidates have not reported to the supervisor of election. Now, I'm assuming they're referring to that policy about forming a campaign committee, and I read it. It's on the website for the election system. I vote that down. That said, even before any campaign donations you accept before registering the political committee has to be reported. Because remember I was talking to you and telling you I'm seeing a lot of prospective candidates having food sales.
Right.
If they have a political committee, once it's registered, they have to report all of that. And people watching, people taking notes.
Yeah.
And I hope the board of elections, if they're aware, for 20 years, candidates, for 20 years now, I don't know if it's the same candidate for 20 years, because, I mean, how many senators been in the legislature for 20 years straight now? I don't know. Anybody been in there? No?
At the
20
present,
years now would be 10 terms, right? You have senators in there now?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
All right, but in any event, if you have knowledge of this taking place, and you have not reported back to the AG, you are accomplice. Because if you're aware, people are taking money that should have been reported to the supervisor of elections, and you're aware that are taking place, then why are you not reporting it to the AG? Instead, you're spreading conspiracy theories. And they can't call nobody name, because they know better. Because they know they get a lawsuit up there. You know what? They can't call a name, but they want to paint a broad brush like it's just Democrats doing it.
You see, Vidal, here is the thing. If a candidate hosts a fundraiser, collects money to finance his or her campaign, even though he or she doesn't have a campaign committee, by law, at some point in time, it would be appropriate to form a committee and to report those receipts to the Board of Elections. Now, on the other hand, if a candidate doesn't have a committee and the candidate is using his or her own funds for campaign purposes, you're not obligated to report that to the Board of Elections. And I went through that 1 year when I used my own funds to finance my campaign, and I did come up with a report to submit to Board of Elections, and they told me that since it's my own money I use, I don't have to report it. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I hear that.
I use my personal funds.
Yeah, some candidates use the personal funds.
All right, and so you're not obligated. You're not obligated to report
that.
Uh-huh.
However, I have said to you that there is a conspiracy theory out, and this is coming from some members of the Board of Elections. No evidence, no proof, just running them out, and then people believe them. And I find if you're on the Board of Elections, you should be neutral.
Try and wrap it up because I got some people trying to come in here.
All right, you should be neutral, and you should not be promoting those kind of things. That is wrong. And I'm saying, people on the Board of Elections, they should know the election laws.
Right.
So why they be telling people that they're lying, telling me I'm gaslighting people when I say the Democrat candidates do not pay for the primary election, because if you're running for public office, it's in the law. Doesn't the Virgin Islands government have to fund all elections?
All right, but let's come back. Let's get back to that. Let's get back to that a little later because I know.
Let's answer a question for me, please. Yes or no?
Run up by
the Virgin Islands government have to fund all public elections.
Well, according to established practice, the government of the Virgin Islands has always done that over the years.
Thank you. So I hope they don't turn up the spot that you were speaking to. Thanks, I'll call back.
All right then. Bye. Hello, caller. Good day and welcome.
Buenos días, mi hermano John Bach. ¿Qué tal?
Bien, gracias. ¿Y tú?
Más o menos. Ahí. Listen, I just tuned in, and it was an interesting thought, or maybe mention that the caller made. Now, she is asserting that if someone on the Board of Election, and I suspect it will carry over to any board, maybe including the Board of Education, that knows that wrongdoing by a candidate has taken or is taking place, they ought to report it, lest it be an accomplice.
Right.
Is that what I was hearing?
Yeah. That's what I gathered.
Okay. Let's look at the national basura. A president of the United States that has 35 convictions against him, yet his name was allowed to go on a ballot and got elected. So wait, he is now having the world in a kerfuffle. The Congress ain't doing nothing about it. They know that. Every police officer and police commissioner knows that he's doing wrong. Every judge, but nobody does nothing about it. Why do you think that is? I don't know. You tell me.
Well, in terms of what the president engages in, are you talking about wrongdoings doing it on a geopolitical level or just nationally?
No, it's internationally.
All right, now
as we speak today, he is going into my ancestors' place in Cuba and putting more blockades on them. I mean, who is this man?
Okay, so let me share this with you and those who are listening. I'll start off by leaving out the Romans, the Greeks, and all of these nations before. I want us to look at more modern times when you had an island called England that basically ruled the world.
Exactly.
And when you look at the rulership of England over the world, you have to check England's connections to France as well as Italy. And I mentioned France and Italy in terms of their way of thinking, their technologies, their principles that they advanced, the philosophies they held on to. Because don't forget that the Pope gave broad latitude to those countries so that they could go out there and they did what they did. Are you with me? And so England for a period of time ruled the world. They controlled the seas. And so it became a known fact that who controlled the waters, the ocean ways, actually held the reins of power.
Right.
America came up later. America made some significant contributions, but then America found herself in a situation where the dominance in the world was being challenged, perhaps not directly, but indirectly, being challenged by Russia and China.
Right.
Russia had its involvement in the Caribbean area, and American government looked at the Russian presence in the Caribbean, and American government, American leadership didn't like that. Not under Donald Trump, but under those before him. To mention just two, President John Kennedy and President Ronald Reagan. And so they took actions to stem the influence of Russia in the Caribbean. Then came the Chinese, exercise or trying to be dominant in very surreptitious ways, not so openly, but they knew exactly what they were doing to establish dominance. And we've often heard that there are families behind the scenes that control things.
Of course.
There are entities behind the scenes, so that you may see a president, but the president is up front. But it's who makes decisions behind the scenes that influence the president to do what he's doing. And so I just want to say to you and those who are listening, when President Trump looks at Greenland, we must look at Greenland from a strategic standpoint and why the President of the United States would have interest in having control there. You have to look at Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, don't forget the Panama Canal. And the United States looking at those areas as far as strategic importance is concerned and wanting to keep out the influence of all the others who would be dominant, and why certain action is being taken. And so when you look at the Caribbean area, you look at Cuba and how at one point, whether we want to accept it or not, Cuba became almost like a colony of Russia at one point in time. And that has been a thorn in the flesh of America, and America doesn't want that to happen. So we've got to look at that and see why a president of the United States will be taking certain action in Cuba, and the same thing holds true for Venezuela and other areas. So I'm saying to you and those who are listening, when we look at this thing and we look at President Trump, let's not be naive. Let's look at geopolitical movements in the world going back, say, 400 years ago, 500 years ago. And let's see why it may not be just the president up front, but it is the government behind the government.
Well, I understand that, and I know very well that any president, including Obama, was just a figurehead. Okay? It's big insurance money and big billionaires that call the shot. And that certain president have to and must do their will, lest he be assassinated. That's how America rules, with an iron fist. Now, all that you said that leads to what Trump and what he's doing, my question still remains is, does that give him and those that are his puppet masters the right to continue to do wrong and only what they do is right?
No,
now, the Bible, I'm sure, don't agree with that. As a matter of fact, and let me say this, because I know you have an answer. The Pope Leo, the current Pope, who Trump has leaned on for spiritual guidance in the past, because he's telling Trump to stop the BS. Trump now said, I never liked her in the beginning anyway. I mean, what kind of narrow thinking is this? You don't like me because I'm telling you to stop doing foolishness. I mean, what is this?
My brother, my brother, let me submit to you and those who are listening. Might is not always right. Now, when I began explaining to you, I spoke about Italian influence on British practices, if I may. There is a concept referred to as the Machiavellian principle, which basically says, it says the end justifies the means. That doesn't make it right. That does not make it right. And that's where I was coming from, that, you know, a lot of time when you look at the leadership in the world, you look at politicians today who have studied political science, and they make some moves sometimes. You know, it's not really right, you know. But what they're saying in the back of the head is that the end justifies the means.
It's true, but let me go by asking this and saying that recently a lot of people is invoking the good book and relying on passages therein that these things were either prophesied to be or have the blessing of God Almighty. What do you think about that?
I go beyond the Bible as a compilation of books that were put together by scholars back in 525 AD, I think it was, or 325 AD, I don't recall. I think it was 325 AD when Constantine brought these guys.
That AD is Anno Domini after the death.
Right. When these guys came together and decided that certain books were considered to be part of the canon and the others rejected. Of the books that have been rejected, cast aside, when you read those books, you will find out that there is a lot more to the biblical story than what we've been reading from the Bible. I know many Christians will disagree with me, but we need to be open-minded. There are other books, not included, that present to us a different portrayal of what has transpired here on planet Earth in terms of the relationship among the higher beings. Because often those of us who read the Bible, we think in terms of it's just one God, none other. And I'm saying to you, and even when you read the Bible, you'll find out that the Bible makes reference to other gods besides the Creator Most High. It doesn't negate the fact that there is a Creator Most High, but there are other gods, and the Bible speaks of the council of the gods sitting down and making decisions, and clearly, and for whatever people might tell you, Satan is powerful. That's why the book of Job tells you that he goes and presents himself before the Most High and almost challenges the Most High when the Most High says to him, have you considered my servant Job? Perfect, upright, avoiding evil?
You said a mouthful. This Satan fellow is very powerful because 99.99% that's going on in the world is people that follow and guidance rather than God.
Exactly. Very powerful God, if I may put him as that. A very powerful, you could call him a demon too, but he's in the earth.
That's why he was thrown out.
Okay.
He wanted to be in the
and he can still, in spite of him being cast down, he can still go and make a presentation, and then he's questioned, where are you coming from? He says, I've been going up and down in the earth. Have you considered my servant? Yes, I consider him, but you know what? You put a head around him.
Exactly.
Come on.
Right.
We can't be too naive when it comes to these matters.
Yeah. What I'm hearing and you're saying about the other gods, would that line up with gods and male gods and demigods?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now let me close by saying this. I don't understand how Ms. Peterson expects a lowly board of education member who, as well as myself, that get threats for the things I dare to post, gonna speak out to get themselves or their family killed, and look at all the judges and everybody else that's allowing the Congress that allowing Trump to do what the hell he wants. Why don't they impeach him? Why don't they have him assassinated? Why don't they do something? She should answer that question. I'm not.
All right, my brother. Thanks for calling and sharing. You stay strong. Keep the faith. Bye.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All righty. Wow. 773-0390, 773-0490, the numbers to call. I know sometimes it's difficult. It's difficult to assess, analyze, make determinations, and speak the truth. Because the truth may sometimes be an offense. The truth sometimes may be an offense. Hello, caller. Good day and welcome.
Oh, good day. I'm back. Why don't they impeach the president? I wonder the same thing too. That's up to Congress, right?
It's up to the Congress, but I want to say to you, listen, because I have served in the legislature, I know what I have observed, what I have experienced, and sometimes I try to hold back in terms of just simply putting things out there publicly. But it's, you look at the governor of the Virgin Islands. Yes, he has a lot of power, that he can exercise. But especially when you have a governor who is a Democrat, you have to consider the influence of the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party does have significant influence through its territorial committee and other branches therein.
I agree.
And so even at times, let me just share with you and those listening right now. I moved legislation in 2005 to address some of the concerns at WAPA. It was called the Emergency Job Creation Act. That would have created some jobs, brought in a small power producer to produce and sell power to WAPA, etc., and produce some downstream industrial stuff as well. It passed. It passed with, I forget how many votes, but we had to the governor vetoed. Governor Turnbull vetoed. We got 14 individuals to override the governor's veto. Only one person voted against it or abstained because that person was a former employee of WAPA. And so that became law. And just when we were about to see things moving so that, the law could now be implemented, a Democratic senator from St. Thomas got together with a senator from St. Croix, and they moved legislation to gut what was already a law on the books. They claimed at the time they were going to bring in something to replace what I had brought to the table, which was going to provide some 400 jobs. And they were going to bring in this clean energy source that was going to create jobs In the final analysis, it was discovered that their company would only produce 3 jobs. And so they got rid of what I had shepherded, brought in their own thing, and eventually it died. It went nowhere. All because of influences of individuals behind the scenes connected to the Democratic Party. I've said it this morning. You know.
Well, you speak truth, your truth. I always say facts can be verified. And as I was saying before, you have members of the Board of Election who are very biased and appear to have a campaign to have the supervisor election fired. The board hires the supervisor of election. I personally think she's doing an outstanding job. She takes a vote just like them to follow the laws. Yes, they want me. I must post the law that says the Virgin Islands government is legally obligated to fund our public elections. I had to say, no. I was elected on board. I didn't take my oath. I'm a community activist. I'm educating, enlightening, and inspire minds. But I don't spoon feed people. We have intelligent, literate, civic-minded citizens in this territory. If they want to find out, verify for themselves, to read to exceed, and they will find the law. But apparently, some members of the Board of Election don't understand the law, don't want to understand the law. And if they want to take the matter to court, they could go do it because they're going to lose. When it's one about the Democratic Party must report financial campaign donations to the supervisor election. The law doesn't say that. That's about political parties, committees, sorry.
Yeah, that's a different.
And they got the voting twisted.
That's Vidal, that's a different kettle of fish in terms of, you know, folks who feel that the Democratic Party should file campaign disclosure with the Board of Elections. That's a different thing. But let me just share this.
That's their opinion.
Yeah, but let me share this with. Yeah, but let me share this with you and those who are listening. The legislature can withhold appropriating monies to fund a primary election if they so choose to do it that way. They can do that. Okay, and let me also share with you and those who are listening, there were times when an attempt was made not to have the primary elections funded. But again, because of powerful Democrats behind the scenes, they rallied the forces, and in next to no time, the monies were appropriated to finance the primary elections. So people need to understand these things. Come on.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Whatever, everybody has a right to their opinions, the feelings, the fantasies, beliefs, and evil delusions. The facts can be verified. And the law can be researched. And that's why I asked you about that one, because right now, if we are to have a primary election, it will be in August. And look at, we in the middle of April. And there's some other matters pending pertaining to elections. Like some folks want to regress to put in their paper balloting and stand-alone box.
If it is not yet law, it's not going to be law before this election.
Right. This is what I'm trying to say. So look at the law that's already in place and be knowledgeable and understand them, because it's obvious. You have members of the Board of Election who do not understand the law and don't want to understand the law. Some of them don't even understand what their job is supposed to be. Every time you go to the AG, go to the AG.
The AG only gives opinions.
That's all. Correct opinions. The AG is not the supervisor election. It's not the AG job to certify candidates and put them on the ballot. By law, the law 8690 is still in place, right? People go read for yourself. elections, certify the candidates. And then the other one, I got just say, put this one in the mastermind file. You would like somebody to sign your nomination paper who is a inactive voter.
Well, anyway, anyway, got people trying to call in.
I know. I have that power, and I'm not a registered Democrat, people. And we're out of this together. I respect people regardless of their political party affiliation. We are one Virgin Islands, and I respect everybody's opinion, and I hope they can respect mine. Thank you.
All right, thanks for calling and sharing. Bye.
Enter the remote access code.
Hello? All right. Hello? All right, caller, try again. Hello, caller, good morning and welcome.
Yes, John, let me ask you something. In the interest tanto case, in the meantime, what do we do? And I say that because, well, I was going to something and Mario and I had discussed, but let me come to the bill that you proffered. I know of it well. And maybe not directly to you or through you, but I may have had some, as a former water engineer, I may have had some influence into the language that went into that bill. And it was a good bill. But what happened to it?
It was
good. What is happening? Go ahead.
Yeah, after it became law, there was movement to gut it out, and they succeeded.
Yeah, well, this is it. And so what is happening because of what it is? Some of the foolishness that we have in today, where people leaving from paying $150 light bill to paying $800 light bill, and some of them say, "What you fussing for? We paying that much, and we paying it. They don't spend it, jumping."
Let me.
When you don't send the man that and pay $200, when you worry about we start, you have foolish people.
Let me share this with you. Let me share this. You know, sometimes I hold back from saying certain things. There was this particular Democrat senator who told me, he said to me, Norman, I'm going to support you on this one. I'm not going to vote along with the others. And that's why I felt so confident that I had his vote, that at the time when there was still, we were still debating, I made a motion to go to roll call on the bill. I quoted the Bob Marley tune, 3 o'clock, roadblock, let's move. I really thought I had it, because this guy told me that he was going to support me. And then when the vote came down, this man voted against me in that thing, you know. And I said, boy, you see how these Democrats operate? But that's how it is.
Let me ask you something. What was his reason, or did he ever tell you why, after giving you the vote of confidence, he voted against it? Did he ever tell you?
He never told me, and I never took it up with him because I felt so betrayed. I didn't want to have anything to do with him, you know. Yeah. But people have to understand that's how these things happen. And let me tell you what else again. A former board member who liked me called me aside and he said to me, listen, man, to succeed in these things, you have to have alliances. And you failed to build those alliances. You think it's easy? Man, listen, we could stay out there and talk all the crap we want to, you know. We got to understand the dynamic of this thing, how it works.
You see, fellows and things like you and myself, we see our alliances as the people that we try to help.
Yeah.
Isn't that why we are there? We are placed there, people's representatives to help them.
Listen, if I did not care about this community, I'm going to say this again so people can understand. I am in a position that right now I could have been traveling the world. I could have been traveling the world right now. I care about this community. I am St. Lucian born, Crucian raised, and I love this place. I love this place to death. And so I stand for the well-being of this community, this territory. That's why you see I'm still here. For years I've been on radio discussing matters with people because I love this place.
I know you're talking the truth, and I always refer to you as Sean back. I have never called you Norman. I'm calling you Norman today.
Right.
Because you've gone where I wanted you to go. The reason you is not in the legislature today consistently for the time you've been there because you're from St. Lucia. Okay? Okay? Now, likewise, I am from St. Thomas, but I can't get elected because they see me as a rabble rouser and say I don't like Crucian. And Crucian, I have a friend that say Christ and St. Thomas. You see how the two things?
Yeah.
But Brian would have been governor if it wasn't a foolish like the girl we were just on a while ago. He knew about that man, but he don't like island people. He don't like white people. White people, Frenchies from St. Thomas is who helped to keep Bud Brian. I mean, when he was running for governor, that's when he got a high amount of votes out of Frenchtown. They're white people, they're not black. My God.
You know what? And as you say that, by the way, Richard Schrader passed away, and I did share condolences online.
Yes, I noticed that it was the papers and my condolences as well.
Yeah, but let me just say to you that Adelbert Bryan. They say the people that say good birth, bad birth. Adelbert Bryan loves the Virgin Islands. He loves St. Croix. He may say and do some things that I personally disagree with, but I cannot deny his love for this place. He's made significant contributions. But you know what? They aren't going to give him his roses. When he dies is when they're going to give him the roses. And there are people who don't like me because I speak the truth.
Right. I would want to see the amount of crocodile deaths from Democrats who have to stress that man beyond mean.
Yeah.
Just because he was an ICMR.
Yeah.
A King man like me.
Yeah.
You know how much time was offered as I was offered to switch to a Democrat and you get whatever you want? And we refuse. They don't know what they're talking to. More than them just come. I will be a band.
Yep.
Talking to me. Anyway, we're going to leave it at that for now. I may come back. I don't know how much more time you have, but I got some things to do, and I may come back. If not, then you get home safe, and we'll talk next week, God willing.
All right, and you take care, man. Blessings, and thanks for calling and sharing.
Yeah, of course.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye. All right. Sometimes I want to speak. There is just so much I wanted to get into. I wanted to talk a little about the vegetation bill that these guys were moving, but they've now set this aside. And I wanted to talk a little about school construction, but I want to touch on some things, cover over before I move on. And I want to say that a couple of weeks ago, I shared with you a little of the amounts that we have received for cover over monies from 1994 until 2018. I want to go through this very quickly before I get into some other stuff. 1994, Puerto Rico got $202 million. The Virgin Islands got $32 million, actually $32.9 million. In the year 2000, Puerto Rico received $298.1 million. The VI received $65.7 million. 2005, Puerto Rico received $395 million. USVI received 81.1 million. 2010, Puerto Rico received 369 million. USVI received 112 million. 2015, when Diageo is now producing, Puerto Rico received 343 million. USVI received 227 million. In 2018, Puerto Rico received 446 million. USVI received 263 million. Significant increase in the amount that the USVI receives with the advent of Diageo on the island. Now, I want to just share some stuff with you this morning. Here's the deal. Every time rum is manufactured in the U.S. Virgin Islands and sold on mainland America, the federal government collects an excise tax by law. The federal government also collects an excise tax from rum produced in some Caribbean jurisdictions and sold on the mainland. That money is covered over to the treasuries of Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Whatever taxes collected from rum produced here in the USVI, that comes back to us. What's produced in Puerto Rico goes back to Puerto Rico. But in addition to that, the federal excise taxes collected from Caribbean jurisdictions, that is split between Puerto Rico and USVI on a certain formula that they've got. And that formula is based on the amount of rum produced in the respective jurisdictions, being Puerto Rico and USVI. And so since Diageo came here, our output has increased, and so we're getting more from that source. Now, thanks to recent legislation, the rate per proof gallon is now $13.25. Before that, I think it was $10.25. So it's now permanent at $13.25. And that is huge, because now we have more certainty as opposed to in the past when the rate had to be sort of like, how should I put it? Through congressional amendments, it was brought from $10.25 to $13.25, periodically. So sometimes when the Congress had not acted, we didn't get the monies. And that created some problems for us here in the territory. Okay, now, what's the money being used for? I want to share some of that with you. The pension system of the Virgin Islands gets a significant portion. First, the government employees retirement system depends on this revenue. It pays our retired teachers, nurses, police, and other government employees. Without rum cover over, the pension system could collapse. The special purpose vehicle that was brought in through the administration of Governor Bryan took significant steps through the PFA to secure those funds to float pension obligation bonds so as to shore up the system. That is not a permanent solution. Besides the pension system, the schools, healthcare, infrastructure, public safety, and the broader community also benefit from that. And some will say, well, how does the broader community benefit from that? Well, let me share with you all that there is a facilities trust fund that was established through the Diageo deal. And every year, approximately $5 to $6 million goes into that fund. How much money is in the fund right now? I don't know. How it has been utilized? It certainly has not been utilized in accordance with established law. Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about that. But that's the reality. The governor should have set up a board to advise the government in terms of how those monies should be spent. That has never been done. And nobody talks about it. This is all the crazies that we have to deal with. That's being forced upon us, and no one challenges the methodology. the modus operandi. Everybody just goes along to get along. And that's perhaps why they don't like me, because I speak truth. But that's okay. I want us to look at some possible scenarios. Our best case scenario, if the 1325 rate stays permanent, then we have a stable source of revenue where our pension system runs fairly well because we have those monies coming in. But there is also the moderate risk. If the rate drops back to 1050, annual revenue could fall by $30–40 million. Worst case scenario, if the cover over is repealed entirely, we're in serious problems. Hello, caller. Good day and welcome.
Yes, hi. Good morning, Mr. John Baptiste. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty okay. How about you?
I'm very all right. Got a doctor appointment later this afternoon, so I just tuned in and caught some of what you were saying. Now, as far as the rum cover over goes, like I said, it went from 1050 to now it's lost, so it's now permanently 1325.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of that money, we don't get. Say, for instance, I heard somebody say this weekend, this December, we're going to be getting some $200 and something million as a result of the 1325 from the Treasury. But how much do we actually get? Because that money has to be shared between Cruzan and Diageo. We have to buy molasses, insure other things, bond debt. So how much money actually goes to the GPI should be divvied up to, I guess, the GERS and wherever else the money goes.
All right, let me just share with you that approximately some 46% of the receipts go to the rum companies, and the rest comes to us. Now, again,
so almost half of it, right off the top, goes to
the rum companies.
Yeah,
for promotional purposes and what have you. And the worst part of it, I've said it before, I'm going to repeat it again right now. The worst part of this thing is the molasses subsidy. We don't have control over price fluctuations when it comes to the price of molasses. So if the price of molasses goes up, we're putting a significant portion of that bill for the rum companies. Now, there is an artificial, I say artificial because I've never been able to wrap my head around that, but supposedly there is a cap somewhere in there. And I really need to get back to find out exactly what a cap is. I've just said to myself that this is an artificial thing. I've not been able to follow it. But I want people to understand that that was not brought in with Diageo. That was already established in law. It was statutorily established before Diageo came here. We were already providing the molasses subsidy to Cruise and Rum. So when Diageo came, it was just extended to them, which of course appeared to have been a normal thing to do if you have the two companies operating here in the territory. But yes, the long and short of it is that approximately 46% of what we get goes to the rum companies, and the rest comes to us.
So, with the 46%, so 44% goes to the GERS?
What happens with the special purposes vehicle? They've got this set up in such a way that they're leveraging a certain amount of those monies to go to the system. And that comes in the form of obligation bonds floated for that purpose. In other words, it's like even in terms of how the distillery was built for Diageo, that was built, it's like they got a loan of $165 million to construct the distillery, and based upon those monies coming in to us, a portion goes to pay for the bond obligation that built the distillery. It's a financing mechanism that is utilized through the PFA.
Yeah, and Diageo, if I'm not mistaken, is off the City Power. They're off the grid.
Yes, they're off the grid. Most of the big
and most of the big businesses are off the grid.
Right.
Aware of that. Yeah. That's what I was transitioning to. As I was looking this weekend, in Ireland, the Irish are protesting. They have the whole country locked down. In certain parts of Southeast Asia, they having fuel crisis. They already having lines for diesel. So, what sort of provisions are we looking to make in light of what's happening with a pending fuel shortage? The most important thing that we need fuel for, especially in the first for power generation. And I guess the next thing would be for automobiles, and some people have certain fuels, propane that we also use for cooking. We don't really use that for heating per se. I guess maybe some laundromats might use propane as a way for drying, but the bottom line is that there is a fuel energy crisis happening globally, and we are not capable, we are not positioned financially or fiscally to say we can purchase, purchase fuel, have it stored, because prices are going up almost to be daily. The fuel prices here in New York, where I go to purchase fuel, it just went from $3.39 to $4.39 within a month. So I'm sure the next time Whopper goes to purchase fuel, they have to pay the increased market rate because the rates have gone up. I'm sure since their last shipment. So once that happens, when Whopper's not going to eat that cost, that means they're going to petition the Public Service Commission for a REACT increase to recoup that cost. So that means you're looking at a rate increase on top of the fact that what's going on, especially in the St. Thomas, St. John district, with lack of electrical service due to outages. They had a committee on the whole. I don't think anything came of it, other than we want Guapa to do this and do that. But saying you want them to do this and not enforcing your edict, I mean, what sense does that mean?
Let me ask you something. Are you aware of the current relationship between the United States government and the government of Venezuela?
Well, I don't know exactly. I mean, I know, I guess, just the basics. What's happening when they extracted Maduro and his wife. They have the vice president who was the Maduro regime now in charge. Of course, I know that Provenza, which we have now, which is Port Hamilton, have the capabilities to refine their crude coming from Venezuela. I don't know what condition the coal cracker and the other equipment that has been sitting for a while since they stopped the refinery process. So,
and these are valid considerations. Well, let me share this with you. Actually, there has been an atmosphere of growing cooperation between the United States government and the government of Venezuela. We have a representative in the Congress of the United States. We also have lobbying firms representing this government in DC. So I think it's incumbent upon our government officials to begin to hold discussions with the United States government to see how best they can look out, they can come together to look out after our interest here in the territory. I am not afraid. I believe that, if we have efficient representation from our elected officials here in the territory, they can begin to develop a framework with the federal partners so that our situation can be addressed efficiently and effectively here in the territory. But if they're slipping out the switch, then nothing is going to happen. It's going to be worse for us.
Well, I think there's still a couple of hurdles that will have to jump to get that done. The first one being the last time the refinery was applicable, that they were having issues with releases. The EPA had to find them, I think, some $700+ million.
Right.
With Trump administration, I know that they have eased a lot of EPA regulations. So on that front, they might be able to do something. But then again, the bottom line is going to come down to the people of St. Croix and the fact that they have had a lot of cancers as a result of having this big industrial petroleum refinery company. But that has not been. But hold on. That has not been established. The cancer registry has never been fully functional. Exactly, that's the problem. We never had a registry to have a database to say, well, this is the causation. But it doesn't take. You don't have to be a scientist to know that you have these release with particulate matter that have carcinogens in it. And whilst, hold on. Whilst what you're saying there is true, that there are all those carcinogens associated with the refinery, but I recall at one point where we were being given some statistics that there was actually a higher cancer rate or cancer incidence in the St. Thomas and John district than in St. Croix. And again, since we didn't have an operational registry, we couldn't say for sure exactly what's contributing to it. There are other Caribbean islands where they have a high rate of cancer right now, and they don't have refineries operating in those places, which tells us that there are many factors that contribute to the incidence of cancer in these islands. So I'm saying unless most of that is going to come from the highly processed foods that we consume. That's where most of the cancers are coming from. All right. And I'm not saying that it's from the releases of some industrial plant that you might be in close proximity to, but unless we have quality air monitors to read the release cancer registries so that we can generate a database and see, what was it? You have this respiratory ailment. Was it because of the release that came off of this plant? So, all I'm saying is that before we go full bore and we have the refinery going 24/7, that we should have these things in place so that there would leave no doubt for people who live downwind of the refinery that that there should be any release, end up on the roof, end up in the system, in the water. I agree. I agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. And let me just share with you and those who are listening. I live in Enfield Green.
whilst the refinery has not been operational for some time, we have been impacted in Enfield Green, where I live, by occasional fires at the landfill. I mean, you can smell it in the atmosphere.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was just, yeah, I mean, that's why we need the quality air monitors, not just for the refinery, but for the landfill when we have landfill fires as well. Because, of course, there's a lot of carcinogens that's going to be released because of the type of products, plastics and petroleum products that's going to be burning in that fire. So,
and all I'm suggesting, my brother, all I'm saying is that yes, we know that we have all those looming challenges that we have to deal with. I'm saying that people in authority need to be proactive in terms of coming together, devising the framework whereby these challenges may be addressed, bringing parties to, meet at a common point so that we can look at these matters.
It could be beneficial for Virgin Islands, if we could get the refinery going again and make sure everything is running, according to our regulations, and that we can see some sort of reduced cost for fuel, especially if they can produce LPG, which is the main fuel source that WAP is currently using, along with diesel. And not just that, but for regular gasoline for vehicles, So you're right. There could be some benefits should everything work out with Venezuela and the Trump administration. But this administration it just goes from one problem to the next. I don't see how we're going to get out of this one here that they're in now with Iran.
Let's see what happens. But anyway, I got some people trying to come in, so let's try and wrap it up.
Sure, no problem. Mr. Baptiste, you take care. Enjoy your day.
All right. You be blessed now, and thanks for calling and sharing. Bye.
All right.
Okay, let's see now. Hello, caller. Good morning and welcome.
Yeah, John. I want to take this opportunity to publicly wish my WAPA brother, Devon Grant, just on, I think he said he made 61 or 62. Just as a joke, I'll remind him, like I reminded Fidel, he too is young enough to be one of the children. Okay. No, but I always said, I don't know why the governor and Carl Knight don't swallow the pride and hire young engineers that had worked in WAPA and that knows the system better than he and Carl Knight would ever know it. And I'm leaving myself out of it, purposely.
Yeah.
Talk about Devon Grant and Brother R. Why let the people suffer? Because these two gentlemen like myself does not fail to call you out for the stupidness I was doing.
Let me say this here to you. I read where WAPA executives said that the stress system, deferred maintenance, and unit failures drove the district power crisis in St. Thomas, St. John. And I'm saying, but wait, guys, how long have the consultants been pressing upon you guys through their review and analysis that you should have structured ongoing maintenance to prevent some of these very things that have risen recently? Come on. You know, you've been told over and over by consultants that you need to have those structured maintenance things in place. It's not been done. You've been told what to do about line loss and all of these matters, and you guys just didn't care. Now I know Carl Knight came on board recently, but all these guys have to do is to go back to some of the recommendations that came from the consultants, and they'll see where mistakes were made, and they can take corrective measures.
Well, you know, I mean, what you said again, you said a mouthful, because I have every consultant report from back in the 60s when I first started at WAPA up to recent one that the government card I paid millions of dollars for. That they're not alluding to. If you're not following your consultants and expert report, be Jesus Christ, why did you pay them money for it? You know?
It's sad.
I mean, who are they fooling?
It's sad, but that's where we're at, you know? And
it's sad, but then the thing is that this just to remind me, because something when we were discussing with Cordell a while ago, you know, when she said, well, if the Congress that could impeach Trump, the people could make so much noise that they would have no other reason but to impeach him. But what? But let me continue to play pussyfoot and go think that this man, and by the way, I need to ask you a question. I keep meaning to forget it. You may have, I believe, some knowledge of secret societies. That means that you're involved in them in any which way. Whether it's Masonic orders or other secret societies. And of course, you have the one that's called Christ. The name escaped, maybe God don't want me to call the name right now, but it has to do with giving souls to the devil.
mm-hmm.
And there's some of us that are in secret societies, myself being a 33rd degree minister. And looking at a lot of little boy, I'm going to see a ring. I'm like, oh, you don't have to be dead. As if it's some joke. They don't know what these things mean. But they want to be in things.
Well, let me just, again, let me share this with you and those who are listening. I think you already know that. When we speak of things spiritual can be evil and they can be good.
Of course.
You look at the practices of voodoo with the blood sacrifices, and you look at Judaism. Judaism also had blood sacrifices.
Mm-hmm.
So that when you look at some of our secret societies, they go back to ancient cultures and civilizations such as Egypt and even periods before the Egyptians. So that there are good things about secret societies. And it's just like when in modern day times we have formed some organizations where we hold something secret to benefit members of the organization, to assist them and in terms of facilitating upward mobility, if I may, in the community, the society.
Exactly.
So that the secret societies might have started off with good intent, but corruption crept in at some point in time, just like it is with Christianity. You know, so that I'm a little particular when I speak about secret societies, because I know that there are some good things about the secret societies, but certain persons apparently came there at some point in time and brought in measures of corruption in terms of their practices.
Right. You know, and again, you're so correct. And the thing is this, if you really know what the thrust of young black boy, them have the kids smoking grass and drinking cognac. Some of them children are very smart. I have proven it. I have taken them into my family business, and German engineers that I brought to look at the Volkswagens that they refurbished couldn't believe a little black boy over there with a big split in his mouth who did that. Very, but then we just throw them out and we forget about them. And I am happy that the girls, the young ladies, and the women are doing well. And for that, I keep asking them, pull the young men behind you, pull them. They need help. They need help. Some of them are demonized. Alcohol got a brain, and drugs got a brain upside down. They need help. You see?
I want to share something. I want to share something with you. I am not a member of the craft. I established that I am not a member, but I understand some of the rituals, the purpose of the rituals, in terms of what simulates a resurrection, in terms of initiation practices, where a sharp object is placed against the left side of your breast, whilst you're blindfolded and being brought along with like a noose around your neck, and even in terms of a threat being made that if you are to reveal secrets, you will be buried 6 feet in the seashore, etc. You know, a lot of this is to ensure that you have the kind of guts, the fortitude, the essence of bravery to deal with matters of life that can be challenging. Most of us do not know how to confront death, and yet death is an everyday occurrence in our communities. So I understand all of these practices, and I don't really have a problem with that. However, there are certain things that have come into play with these societies. It wasn't necessarily there at the beginning. You know, human sacrifice, as a matter of fact, you know, human sacrifice is something that it's something that was brought in from some evil influence, if I may put it that way.
Yes.
And people come.
Blood sacrifice.
Yeah, people come to accept these things.
Because again, you know what it is? The thing is this, and I say this, so the shooting it happened in Fredericksburg, I believe, the other day, where they put so much bullets in this young man's body. Those that did it, I can assure you, you pull a gun on them and they'll offer you the world. They call him their mother, they call everybody, they call him God. Don't shoot me, please. But they shoot someone else so easily. Kill someone so easily.
Do you know, do people understand what it means that you're traveling, you get into a foreign jurisdiction where you're stranded, and you can stand in a certain way so that members of your fraternity can see you and identify that you're a brother in distress and come to you and assist you? What's wrong with that? Is there anything wrong? I'm asking you, is there anything wrong with that? That I belong to an organization that has armed me, empowered me with a way of standing, leaning, whatever it is, a signal so that folks who belong to that organization can see that I'm in distress and can reach out and help me. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with me sitting at a table, having a discussion with some people, and then I realize that there are persons who shouldn't hear the conversation, and I say to my brethren, the roof is leaking. So you get the message. What's wrong with that?
Nothing wrong with it.
All right, my brother. I rest my case.
It's how we like to. I don't know how we like to. And I'll tell you, I know some people who are in WhatsApp groups of clans of cliques than you and I. But then they come out every Sunday in a brand new white flag going to church. You know?
You can go to church. You can go to church 5 days a week, 7 days a week, and still not be right with the Creator Most High. And I want to repeat again for those listening: don't get the impression that I belong to any secret society. I am a person. I read. I do research. I know things. I don't belong to any secret group. Come on, man.
I don't go by saying this. When I tell people that I am in the same lodge out of the greater New York area that Donald Trump is a member of.
Yeah.
How come people see that thing and he said here? And you said it yourself, you alluded to it, there's good and evil and everything.
Yep. That's right.
Even in the Masons or the Eastern stance, in the Eastern stance, you have a pack of lesbians in the Masonic orders. You have a fire and man. That's what they choose to do, rather than concentrate on the work of the brother and sisterhood.
Exactly. Anyway,
but I'm going by saying this now. Seriously, I tell people when they say, "Oh, you're a Mason," I said, "No." I say, "Oh, yes, I'm a Mason, but I'm also an electrician and a plumber."
Yeah.
Don't I have other attitudes? Only Mason, you could see me. Give me a break.
And my brother, let me tell you, I have a number of my friends who are members of the craft. We get along finely. No problem.
Well, why not? Why not?
Okay. Take care, man. Thanks for calling and sharing.
You know what I'm saying?
All right, bye. All righty, I'm 773-0390, 773-0490. Hello, caller, good day and welcome. Hello? Hello, caller, are you there?
Ring back. Disregard.
All right, okay. All right, let's see. Hello? Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good
morning.
Good morning, welcome to the program.
I'm on there?
You are on the air. I don't know why there seems to be an echo.
Oh, okay. I guess there's a longer delay than I expected.
All right.
Yes, all right. So I've been calling and talking about this since at least 2009 when the Alpine group came in and wanted to use pet coke for waste energy. And I think that was the second proposal. There was one before that. I wasn't here at the time, but I heard about it when I returned. And I heard, but they wanted to do a big project where they wanted to ship all the waste garbage from St. Thomas to St. Croix to have a waste energy unit here. I'm in favor of waste energy, but I was not in favor of the Alpine project, at least the initial one, when they wanted to burn St. Coke, because I knew that they were going to have a problem getting rid of the ash. And if it stayed on St. Croix, when we had a hurricane, it would coat the whole of St. Croix. And that stuff had in nickel, iron that can produce, can give people cancer. And then there was something, vanadium, which is not as bad, but it itches the skin. And so it made it not useful for the things that they were saying you could use it for. They were saying, oh, you could use it for road repair. Well, they tried that in Jacksonville, Florida, and the people in the neighborhood complained because their skin were itching, and they had to stop, and they weren't using it for road repair. But these guys are just saying stuff. Apparently, after a while, I realized these guys never did anything with Petco because they didn't seem to understand any of the problems with it. And I looked them up, and they were coal guys. They never. This was going to be their first Petco project.
All right.
Anyway, they eventually said, "Okay, we're not going to use Petco. We'll just use garbage." But the Senate, wasn't having it. And so they didn't do it. But I was saying that the idea of waste energy made perfect sense to us. It was just the way they were planning to do it was the problem. There were other ways of doing it more technically advanced ways that could have handled the Petco, could have handled tires, bathtubs, kinds of stuff, but they were trying to do it the cheap way. And also they didn't have the experience. I don't even know if they knew of the other way, to tell you the truth. But we should have, this is what we should have picked up and done. We have two farmers that can be fixed by a waste to energy thing. We have the landfills that need to be closed, and as you pointed out, every once in a while on fire. And I have a strong suspicion that that's not accidental because they need the room. And when you have a fire, you make room. We also have Whopper with needing fuel. And I was a little encouraged when they moved to propane because if you have a propane system, which is a gas system, you can incorporate the waste to energy, at least the more sophisticated way, when you turn the garbage into a gas and then you burn the gas. That gives you a cleaner burn. But even a just straightforward burn you can do and without turning it into a gas, and you can capture the emissions. Right now, Huntsville, Alabama is one of the places in the state that are doing this. And this is where NASA Marshall Flight Center is, where they have made all the rockets for the spaceships that have gone to space. Every last one, from the very first one. At the end of World War II, they rushed in and captured Germany's top rocket scientist. And they put him in Huntsville, Alabama, and said, "You're going to be making rockets for us now." And that's where all the rockets for all the NASA's flights and also all our missiles. They had what was called at the time Army Missile Command. Is also in the same compound. So all the rockets for the U.S. for both military purposes and space exploration are made here. So this is a high-tech company in north central Alabama. As one newspaper put it, is PhDs in pickup trucks. But so this is not. They have been using for 32 years waste to energy to create steam to heat that facility, the Missile Command and NASA Marshall Flight Center. And now they're trying to build up the pressure and temperature and pressure, so now to use it for energy, electrical energy. And they're using the low-tech version of just burning. When by doing that, they take a garbage truck is reduced to a wheelbarrow full of ash. They said that since they've been doing this, their landfill has not increased in size at all. They're basically just burning it to get energy.
Yeah, well, my thing is that, and I hear what you're saying. Here is my problem with us in the territory. We have a university.
Right.
The university has a research branch.
Right.
We have all of these problems. We've seen what happened over the years. We had a situation where, from processing bauxite, we had the red dust. Nobody moved to find some creative ways and means of dealing with that. And I'm saying we have people.
But let's be real. If the university did, who's going to listen to them?
How do you mean who's going to listen to them? This is.
I'm telling you, I've been talking about this since 2009. I have the background in this more than the engineers. My area deals with matter and energy. And I've been speaking out about this, and none of the senators have been paying me any mind. So I don't think they're going to. So you're saying the university? I think the university has given up on a lot of things.
They should not give up.
They don't pay people who know. They don't pay attention to people who don't have a clue and say, "Nah, that can't work."
No, my brother, listen to me. I am looking forward to UVI to lead the charge. I mean, I can't see that I'm the only one thinking like that. listen,
But
but
tell me, give me the time when the government has paid attention to anything UBI has talked out about. Don't tell me they've never talked out about anything.
Well, we need to have a conversation. We have
but they aren't interested in having a conversation. It's not about an intelligent conversation. I said somebody could lay out all kinds of research, all kinds of stuff. So this ain't even research that UBI needs to do. The research has been done. This is something that has been being done in many cities.
Well, we got.
If they're concerned, they can go there and again a high-tech city of NASA. If of all people should know whether this makes sense or not, should be them. They just send somebody to the moon. Four people to the moon, and they can't figure out waste energy.
Well, listen.
It makes sense to use or not.
Well, my brother, in my book, UVI means so much to us. We need to begin to
I think you're scapegoating them because they don't need UVI for this. Research has been done. As I said, NASA is doing this for their heating and now going to use it for the electricity. The federal government. They don't need UVI.
Okay, well, I'm not saying not in this particular area they may not need UVI, but UVI needs to be seen as
but that's a different argument for another day. I agree with you, but that's a different argument. They don't need UVI for this.
Okay, I can accept that.
But the problem we have is that nobody wants to plan. This is something that is going to need planning. And the minute it comes to, so look at WAPA. When they wanted to move from propane or from oil to diesel to propane, what did they do? They hired a company to put the system in, but to do the planning for them. And then, so now it grew from $84 million to $160-something million. Almost doubled, just barely under being doubled in price. Because they were letting the people who were paying the money to establish stuff to plan it. So, of course, the people are planning the most expensive route they can because they're a company out to make profit. Why are they giving us savings?
Wow.
But we should have been the ones to plan that thing out. And then look for a company that will be able to do it.
Let me share this with you and those who are listening. We have, since UVI was mentioned, we have a law in the books that states that anytime this government, the Virgin Islands government, needs to carry out a cost-benefit analysis of some endeavor, that UVI should be the first to be given the opportunity to conduct that cost-benefit analysis.
So you think WAPA went to UVI?
Hold on. I'm saying to you that law, that's a law. But nobody looks at it to say, well, okay, we should follow the law. They don't do that.
Exactly.
They go to other sources, and that's wrong.
And that's the thing. As I said, our problem is plan is a four-letter word to us. We run away from it. And that keeps getting us in trouble. We're asking other people who don't have a tie to the Virgin Islands to make the plans for us.
Wow.
And then even when they do make the plans, we ignore them. You talk about there have been so many artists out there, the PSC, they paid this company to do an assessment of and they tell them what they need to do, and they ignore it.
Yeah, you're right. Wow. I don't know. I don't want to give up.
So you're asking UBI to.
I don't want to give up. But we've come full circle. I gotta go.
All right.
Thanks for calling and sharing. Boy, one last thing I want to leave with folks here is that there is a 17-year-old boy in one of the states who built a nuclear reactor in a shed in his parents' backyard.
Wow.
And somehow the FBI and them found out.
Of course.
And they came down. Next thing, they just overtook the neighborhood, had to dismantle this thing because it was given, how do you call it thing?
Radiation or something?
Right. So they had to, 17-year-old guy who did his own research.
Right, got his skills.
And came up with that. And man, we underestimate our young people and what they can do.
That's true.
And I'm saying that's why I want to see us make use of the students at UVI, man. We got them. It's a resource that we have. Give them the opportunities. Anyway, folks, I've come full circle. Until next week, same time, same place. Stay safe, be blessed, and we'll be